All right, let's dive into something that, well, every single one of us has to deal with change. Sometimes it's exciting, other times it's downright terrifying, and let's be honest, it can be exhausting. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? Today, we're going to dig into some seriously timeless wisdom, not just to get through change, but to actually come out better on the other side. I mean, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why does stepping away from what we know and into something new feel like such an uphill battle? Well, a big part of it is just how we're built. Our brains crave stability, they love knowing what's coming next. So when things get shaken up, our first instinct is to push back, to resist. But maybe that's not the best move. And here's a pretty powerful answer to that question. John F. Kennedy just nails it here. He's telling us that change isn't some random event that crashes our party. No, it's the fundamental rule of the game. And if we spend all our time staring in the rearview mirror, or even just at our feet, we're not just resisting. We're literally going to miss out on where life is heading. So that brings us to our first big idea. We've got to totally reframe how we even think about change. It's not an interruption to your regularly scheduled programming. It is the programming. It's the constant flow that we're all a part of. I love this African proverb. It's so simple, but so profound. It shows this idea is universal. Life has a soundtrack, a rhythm, and that soundtrack is always changing. When the beat drops or the tempo shifts, you can't keep doing the same old dance moves. It just doesn't work. You gotta find the new rhythm. So what this really boils down to is that this feeling, the sense that everything is always in motion, it's not some new 21st century problem. It's a core part of being human, and it always has been. And there's something really comforting in that. We're not alone in this. We're just the latest in a long line of people figuring it out. Which, of course, leads us right here. If the music has changed and you're just standing there frozen on the dance floor, well, it's not a great look, right? The philosopher Alan Watts says the only thing that makes sense is to just jump in. Don't fight it. Move with it. Join the dance. Okay, so if joining the dance is the answer, what happens if we refuse? What's the real price we pay for trying to just stand perfectly still while the world spins around us? Let's talk about that. And this really lays it out there. You've got two paths in front of you. One is progress, moving forward, becoming something new. The other, well, it's stagnation. It's like a river that just stops. And what happens to a river that stops flowing? It gets murky, stale, not a place you want to be. George Bernard Shaw really connects the dots for us here. We all talk about wanting to change things, right? Change our jobs, our communities, maybe even the world. But Shaw points out that any of that big external change has to start with a small internal one. If you can't change your own mind, your own perspective, forget about changing anything else. And boom, this proverb just says it all in one sentence. We sometimes think being stubborn is a sign of strength, of conviction, but this piece of wisdom flips that completely on its head. It says true wisdom isn't about always being right. It's about being willing to become right by learning, by growing, by changing your mind. All right, we get it. Change is the law. Standing still is a bad idea. So now we get to the most important part. What do we actually do? What's the secret to actually moving forward instead of just getting dragged along? This is the key question, right here. If trying to push back against the ocean's tide is just going to leave you exhausted and soaking wet, there has to be a smarter way. There has to be a better strategy. And here it is. This is the secret, coming to us from Socrates. And honestly, this might be the biggest game changer of them all. It's a complete shift in where you point your energy. Stop wasting it wrestling with the thing that's already fading away. Instead, turn around and become an architect of what's coming next. It really is that simple. It's about redirecting your focus. Think about it. Every bit of energy you spend complaining about the old way or fighting what's already happened, that's energy you can't use to invent, create, and build a better future. It's moving from defense to offense, from resistance to creation. Now, to get good at building the new, you need a certain kind of skill, a certain quality. It's not about being tough, it's about being adaptable. So let's explore this art of adaptability. Sometimes when we hear the word adaptability, we think it means just going with the flow or being a chameleon. But this definition, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, is so much more powerful. It's about having a solid core, the power of resistance to reject what's harmful, but also being open enough to absorb and integrate new, good things, the power of assimilation. It's being both strong and open. This proverb gives us the absolute perfect image for that idea.
We think of a giant, rigid oak tree as the symbol of strength. But what happens to that oak in a hurricane? It snaps. It's the bamboo, the tree that can bend almost to the ground and then spring back up. That's the one that survives the storm.
And that's the core of it. We have to completely redefine our idea of what strong looks like. It's not about being rigid, unmoving, or unbreakable. Real, true strength is about being flexible. It's about being able to bend without breaking. In a word, it's resilience. So after all this, after embracing change, building the new, being resilient, where does it all lead? What's the payoff? Let's take a look at the destination of this whole journey. I love this slide because it's so incredibly honest. It breaks down the whole process and acknowledges reality. Yeah, starting out is going to be hard. And you know what? The middle is going to be a total mess. It's going to be chaotic. But, and this is the important part, it promises us that if we stick with it, the end result is gorgeous. And here's the full quote from Robin Sharma. It's just so perfect because it doesn't try to sugarcoat anything. It validates that feeling of struggle. It tells you that the messy part isn't a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're right in the thick of a real transformation. So really, the final piece of advice here is just to have faith in the process itself. The hard parts, the messy parts, the confusing parts, that's not the obstacle. That is the path. It's the raw material that the gorgeous part is made from. Don't put in the middle. And that brings us right back to where we started, full circle. It all comes down to a fundamental choice. You can stare at the past, and, like JFK warned, you're guaranteed to miss the future. Or you can hear that new music playing, and as Alan Watts urged, you can join the dance.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a bunch of cool quotes. This is about your life, right now. The music has changed, in big ways and small ways. So the only question left to answer is the one right here. What will your new dance be?